Okay, so then we can move on. I see it is already the slides of the next presenter, which is Caterina Vidulli, which is the CEO of Central Marketing Intelligence, a company based here in Trieste. Caterina, she will tell us a few words about her company. And it's another site partner, as was Visit. And then Caterina is also the communication manager of this of our project. I will leave the floor to her. We are amazing on time, which is quite unusual, but we are perfect like. So I don't want to waste more time and let Caterina start from the very beginning. So thank you very much. After Caterina, we'll have a break of 15 minutes, and then there will be another presentation from Caterina Vidulli, and the last one from Elisa. But as also Federica said, so if you have at any time you have any question, you have a chat, so please put, and we try to answer either now or in the next days. So thank you very much. So Caterina, please go ahead.
Thank you, Lorenzo, for introduction. And yes, we divided the presentation into two parts. The first about effective and accessible communication through text, images, and videos. And in the second part, we're going to look at the different channels we can use to broadcast, to distribute these text, images, and videos we produce. So in the site project, yes, we are in charge of the communication, but also the research part of the project, since in Central Marketing Intelligence, we are a marketing intelligence company first for all. So we wanted to start with some data. Why accessibility really matters. So why should we care about everything we are talking about today? The first point is a lot of people, unfortunately, have a form of disability in the world. So 1.3 billion people in the world. And in Europe, 27% of the population, of the adult population, have a form of disability. That counts more than 100 million Europeans. So the distribution in the different countries is not so homogeneous. So there are some differences among the countries. But what's the same in all countries is that it increases with age, of course, but also in the other age groups. So in the different age groups, there are people who experience a form of special need. So accessibility also in communication is very, very important if we want our message to arrive to all the people involved. But it's not just something we say, it's a minority, so we don't care so much because it's just a minority. It's not. It's actually 1 out of 4 people who need some attention. And the evolution of communication, so today with all the communication means we have, actually this evolution open up new opportunities. Now people with special needs can actually access more content, more channels. They can participate like never before in history. So this is very, very important, but it's our responsibility to make it possible, because there are a lot of means for them to experience better communication, since there are screen readers for people with visual problems that convert text into speech. There are real-time translation possible, or LIS systems like Visit provides. So people with hearing problems can, in real time, access some translators who can help them in the moment. So it's very easier for them than it were before. And there are now artificial intelligence systems that can turn audio into text automatically. So they are going to evolve in the future, and they can be used in moments when translations by people is not accessible. There are Zoom magnifier software for users who are not blind but have some problems with vision, and there are simplified keyboards. So the possibility to move just clicking one button for people with musculoskeletal problems, or also eye movements to use keywords. There are also apps that offer different support. So apps for any kind of problem, also people with cognitive problems. So applications that can access content and translate them as the person needs. There are there is the possibility to add all the different text, like titles for images. We are going to see it many times in the presentation, and the websites are even more compatible with all the technologies, and so there is a wide choice of channels to help everyone choose which channel is better for them. But the problem is that all of this is not working if we are not thinking before about what we are producing. So if we are producing the content as in the past, or without thinking about all of these problems, then most of these tools cannot work. That's the problem. So screen readers cannot work if we don't add some text. We're going to see it where. Or apps cannot access our websites if it's not made in some ways. Or the content we publish on social media that people with different problems actually use very easily, but our content can be a challenge for them. So it's very, very important to think before, to think about our communication to be equal. And so we need to think in the terms of a universal design. At the end, we're going to summarize all the different principles with all the tips. But universal design has 7 principles that think about not creating differences between different groups, but making everything we are doing, and with this presentation we are talking about communication, but making everything accessible for all. And so in communication, we have 4 different dimensions. One is text. The first one is text, accessible text, accessible images, accessible video, and audio. So it's important that all of them that compose the communication, any communication message, it's important to plan them from the beginning to be equal and to be read, to be viewed, to be listened from different channels and from different perspectives. So now we're going to go deeper into each of them to understand what we can do to plan it better when we start creating our content. The first one is text, of course, and we already seen text from the perspective of a meaning of a content, so how to make it simple. But it's important how we can read it when it's written in the right way. So of course, as we already listened to, it's very important to use short sentences, but not just yes, firstly because it's easier to understand, but the second reason is it's easier to read on a screen. If we use a very long sentence, even if it's simple, or it's a sentence with different smaller sentences, but it's very long, it's very, very difficult to read it. And also people without any problem, they can kind of stop reading if it's too long online. And online, the problem is more, the problem increases on digital screens, but it's also important on paper. So using short sentences and using visual ways to make it very clear. So headings, bullet points, and small summaries. Avoiding jargon, we already spoken about that. And of course, making the most important parts very, very easy to find. So in case of projects, objectives and results, for example, so why we're doing this and what we get if the project is going well. And so make it easier for people who are going to address a very long article, a newsletter, a website, understand what's in there for them, and make them happy to read it. So the first part of any text is the most important one, and the presentation, so how we can actually read the text, it's the second point. In fact, it's very, very important to choose the right fonts. So for headlines should be very large, and they should be short, just few words, and very easy to read. So the fonts for headline, actually, it's possible to to select the one we prefer, since the text is very large, so it's not a readability problem. But you can see that there are differences in different fonts. So when there is, in this case, the weight of the different letters is optimal for readability, while in other situations the different weights, you can see there is a thick part and a thin part. For some persons could be a challenge to read, so it's better to use a very naked, we can say, font. And when the dimension decreases, it's very important to choose a perfect font, and it's better to use a sans serif family font, the ones without all the elements here. This is a with serifs, and this one is sans serif. You can see the differences. It's easier, quicker to read. Or this is with serifs, like the small fancy parts here. Serifs actually improve readability on paper. Someone says improve on paper, but not for everybody. So it's there is a sort of war between people who prefer serif and sans serif, but actually online on websites it's better to use sans serif. On paper it depends, but it's actually better to use sans serif. Never use unless for titles, very fancy titles, fonts with like this, very very fancy or decorative fonts. So they can be used only to present in an image a title with just a decorative mean. So on body text, the minimum size is 1214, and it's never. Every time we look at content, we see that people use lower characters because they want to add more text, but actually it's better to not to reduce the dimension. And it's important to use line spacing, so not create a wall of text, but with space, with a line length of maximum 65 characters. What's another important thing is that it's important to align left the text, not justify the text, because it's harder to read the justified text. Even in presentations, if you justify the text, then the eye cannot find spaces to read properly. So most people justify text because they think it's better fit, but it's not. And it's very important to create a hierarchy, not just a visual hierarchy. So to use a larger title and then smaller titles and the body text, but also use HTML tags, meta tags, to technically make the systems understand the importance of the different titles. This way, the screen readers can understand which one is the title, which one is the second title, and so on. So to help navigation. Otherwise, if you just use different sizes, but not this is for websites, of course, not for social media. On social media, we cannot use the tags, but on websites, it's very, very important to create a heading hierarchy. Otherwise, it's not possible for screen readers to move properly. And then the last but not least, the importance of contrast. We already spoken about that, but it's very important, since if the background and the text are too similar, it's impossible to read, and on screens it's worse, and for some people it's even worse. So you can understand properly which are bad or good examples. The importance is to have at least a 4.5 to 1 ratio between the background and between the text and the background, and the simpler the better. So how we can be sure that our contrast is okay? There are some software that's called Adobe, for example, color contrast analyzers. There are a lot of different softwares, and it's very, very easy to use, since it's you just have to find the color you're using. So now I can show it to you. So if you're using on your website, on your image, if you, for example, are using this color for the background, then it's not possible to use white. So you need to use a color that at least reaches 5 in ratio, contrast ratio. So you need to look at the different colors, and if you already picked the color, you just have to find the color number, add it here, and see and verify your contrast. There are also some Chrome extensions you can download, so directly when you are in a website or on your graphic editor, you can just click on the extension and move on the screen and see the number of the colors and the contrast between the colors. So there are many ways to verify this, so no justification if you use it in the wrong way. Actually, okay, let's go back to the presentation. And actually, something that very often is not properly done. Sometimes we are obliged to use some colors, so we stick with that colors, but we need to find a way to make text accessible. When the dimension of a text is higher, it's the dimension, for example, of a title, then it's less important that the contrast is above 4.5. But for body text, so small text, it's absolutely mandatory. Going on, we switch to the short form. So text content, but in short form. Short form is used for the so-called copy on social media. So it's not like a long text on a website or in a report, in a presentation, in a project presentation, but it should be shorter. So on social media, it's better to use also emoji. So it's easier to understand. Emoji has bullet points, so it's easier to understand the different parts of a text, and so people can choose which part to read and which one is less relevant. And then use hashtags to help the content spread, and also to help understand which is the most important part of the content. So what's the content about? So what's this about? And if you don't know about that, I can click on the hashtag and find other different posts about the same content. Then the phrases, of course, should be short and direct, even more than in the long form. No relatives or complex syntax, because it's not needed here. And also on social media, it's very important to use the text contrast rules, because otherwise it's not possible to read on the images. And on social media now, the images are also used to create the carousel, so many images to like a sort of small presentation. So on the images, it's very, very important to use the text contrast rules. In fact, it's important not to add too much text on the images, because it's not readable by the eye, but on images, text is not readable by the screen readers as well. So if we add text on an image, we know that people who have vision problems cannot properly view it. So the solution is to add a textual explanation on the post, of course, but also to add the titles of the images, and we are going to see it in the next slides. Now, other tips are about the content of the images. So on the images, of course, if you are in travel, if you are publishing about travel images, it's very important to show diversity, but also in the normal content, adding images that are real, but are not perfect, but are showing normal people, and also people with different problems, different ages, ethnicities, abilities, different families, create a sort of affinity with the content. So it's something that we suggest, and prefer the flat style modern illustration, makes it easier to understand. So yes, of course, it's possible also to use photographs, but if you want to show something in a simpler way, then the flat style, it's very, very accessible. Then to help people understand images, and not also people, but also the technical systems, the alternative texts are the most important element. So alternative text, it's technically the title of the image, describing the image, that can be read by the different systems, like search engines, like the social networks as well, the social algorithm, and also by screen readers. So in each social network, the feature has been added recently to make it possible to add alternative text to the different images. So it's something that most people don't know how to add. So we're going to explain in each social channel how to do that. So as you can see here, even if in this post we have 7 images, we can add a title on each of them, explaining what's in the image. So for example, in the second image, there is an image with a text and a piece of data and a figure. So we can see representation of facts, 16% of the population, etc., etc. So even a screen reader can understand what's in the image, and the image can also be indexed. So so Instagram in this case can understand what's exactly in the image and then make it accessible. So on Instagram, how to do that? When we are publishing the new post, in the last part of the editor, there is this accessibility, sorry, it's in Italian, it's an accessibility area. And in this accessibility area, every image we added is shown with a text space. So we can add the title here. On Facebook, it's not the same. So when we publish a post, we should go to modify edit. If it's a carousel, like in this case, so many images together, you should go to edit everything here, edit everything. And for each image, we can add a text. And so we can also add an alternative, we should click to alternative text here, and we should add not just a text for the image, but also an alternative title for the image. It's tricky to find. On LinkedIn, it's on the bottom here, there is this icon Alt. And so adding Alt, we can add the text of the image here. I know it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work because it's very long to add all the text, and we also should think which language we are adding the text. English, yes, as we've seen before, yes, we can use English, but then not everyone is, of course, English speaker. So at least the screen reader reading English could translate it. Yeah, but if a project, in this case the project is for 2 countries, it could also be possible to add the text into languages. Then the screen readers are going to read all the text so in different languages, but at least it will be easier to understand. At the moment, we are using the English language in this case, but it's something we should think before. So who is going to read this text? Should I add it, if I am publishing in Italian, should I add it in Italian, or should I add it in English, Italian and English, or different languages? On X, so the X Twitter, it's here. It's the edit button here on the image, and then we can add a description. It's not so edit here, then on clicking on Alt here, and so we add the description here. There's also an explanation why alt text is important. So they're actually saying yes, use it. But another difference is in some social channels, it's possible to add also later the alternative text, but on X, it's actually not possible. On LinkedIn, it's not possible. on Facebook and Instagram, it's possible. So if you forget about that, or if you want to change them, the titles, it's possible. But on X and LinkedIn, think about it before. On YouTube, it's possible. On YouTube, we have subtitles, so we're going to see it in later. Okay, so that's something we should never miss. Third type of content, it's video. So video content, it's has new challenges, but it's easier for more groups, because it's the video content the idea of a video is to show in an easier way to understand than a long text, for example, or text and images. It could be, usually for most people it is, for some other people it's not, and of course it depends on how we created the video, of course. So it's important to add also transcripts or summaries in the video descriptions, and offering alternative ways to understand the content if a video is not the perfect format for the user. So for example, in the description, it's possible to read the full article on a website with the URL. So if they don't want to view a video, they can find a text, or on the other way, if it's probably better to view it on other social channels with images, it's possible to add the URL. In the video, when editing the video, avoiding flashing contents and the translation between the parts of the video, so with the effects, adding effects with lights that are so pop but not easy for sensitive people. Using a clear visual narration, so not just background music or text, but understanding what we are seeing and why. So creating a story, so it's easier to follow, and also people want to arrive at the end of a video. And also in video, of course, pay attention to the contrast, because sometimes text overlays are not readable. So it's very important to follow the 4.5 to 1 rule also on video. And then, of course, add captions. And captions can be in two different forms: open captions or closed captions. Open captions are the captions that are always visible on the video. So it's not possible to eliminate them, and are burned on the video track. So there is no control. The viewers cannot turn them off. And so they're ideal for social channels where it's not possible to add subtitles otherwise, but not on other platforms. For example, on YouTube, it's better to have the other form, that is the closed captions. So the viewer can choose the language, if there are more languages, and can choose if to enable them or not to have them. So it's more flexible, and usually it's better for the position of the text on the video, and are also readable by screen readers. So it can be readable, like it's possible to have the subtitles read like a text, so translated as a text. So it's better on YouTube, for example. It's better to have them, and also on Vimeo, or if you're using video embedders in your website, it's better to have the closed captions. While the open captions, like titles, can be added otherwise, even if there are closed captions for important sentences. So in the video there is a quotation, a very important sentence, then you can use a text on the video. But then on long formats for YouTube or embedders, it's better to leave closed caption videos. And the closed caption videos on YouTube, for example, on YouTube, it's possible to add them in the subtitles area. YouTube is going to create a version of the subtitles anyway, but then going there and clicking modify, it's possible to modify the text, to copy it, and using ChatGPT or other LLMs, it's possible to give all the text, translate the text, check, of course, if the translation is correct, and then publish it again here, adding a new language. So it requires time, but it's something that's easier than before when we had to write everything with different timestamps. Now the social networks can help us synchronize the text with the video. There are also some other, a lot of applications where we're starting up every day, like Caption AI, Opus, CapCut, whom starting from a video can help us create the open captions or also closed caption to export. So no excuses. Today everything is possible, so we should think about all these possibilities. And then last, the audio content that is a perfect format to include who have visual impairment, of course, or people who are on the move, so it's better for them just to listen to something. And of course, it should be clear. The audio should be good quality audio. The speech should be clear with a neutral accent, without jargons or also here. And it's easy to understand if we cannot create as in a text the headings, the subheadings, and the parts of the content, and it's more difficult than in video to move into the audio track. So it's better to create some cues like, okay, we start with that, now we'll move to the second part, and it's also possible in the description of a video to explain the different parts and add the time frame when the content is going to be presented, so to enable the listener to listen to the part they prefer. And it's also possible, we suggest to also transcribe the audio and add it as a description, for example, on a website or in newsletters or in the format we prefer. So just concluding, summarizing, universal design in communication, it's very, very important, and following the 7 principles, we can plan the content correctly. So the first point is to be equitable, and I really like the image of a revolving door, so everyone can use it in the same way. There are no differences like you should use the back door, but if we use a clear, easy to understand language, if we enable the screen readers functions, if we plan the structure of the content correctly, then everyone can use it without any problem, and they don't think like different. The flexibility in use, so we should always offer alternatives, and there are many alternatives today: text, audio, multiple languages, simplified versions. It should be simple and intuitive. We have spoken a lot about that, so structure it in the simplest way, not in the fanciest way. The 4th principle is perceptible information, so the information should be easy to read, good contrast, readable fonts, caption, support screen readers to make everything perceptible. Tolerance for error, that's the 5th principle of universal design. Also in communication, we should include all the options. So on a website, of course, we should plan it to come back easily, but on content, we should make the viewer, the reader, understand what they should do. So why they're reading that, what's the call to action, so-called, so what they should do after they read our content. So it's very easy to not to think about that, to forget about that, but it's very important to think in advance, what should the reader then do. So follow us, and go back and after the video and so on. Low physical effort, so we should think it's possible for people who should do low effort to navigate, so we add all the titles, all the tags, and then appropriate size and space. Of course, it's very easy to understand what that means in communication. We should ensure text, images, and videos that can adapt to different devices, so the format of the pictures and of the videos. And in each screen, it should be possible to read the subtitles if we added, for example, open captions. So every time we publish something, we should think that true accessibility starts when we see our content through the eyes of the others, because the most powerful content is the one that no one is excluded from. So I want to leave you with this quotation. Since the next time we are going to publish something, before clicking publish, think about that. Think, is it really accessible to everybody, and did I follow all the 7 principles of universal design? So if you have questions, I'm here. And then in the second part, we are going to have a proper look at the different channels we can use to broadcast our content.
Okay, so thank you very much, Caterina. It was very interesting and insightful, I think. So we are going to provide a really clear overview on how we can make things easy and accessible to everyone.
Can I kindly ask Caterina one thing about, first of all, your presentation was really very, very useful. I learned a lot. And I wanted to ask you, you also mentioned some tools we can use for instance, checking the color contrast, or all the tools you mentioned. Are they free of use, or do you have to? Are they for pay? I mean,
good question. the Adobe color check. Yes, the check is free. So yeah, there should not be any pro versions. Then if you want to have it integrated into other like Adobe platforms, I think there's something, but you can access it without an account. I think it's a tool they provide. There are also other interesting tools. Adobe for content creation also offers tools, 3 tools. There's another tool in the same area. Then Adobe suggested you the best colors, not just the ones with a ratio, because the ratio is at least visible, but then it could not be pleasant to see. Yeah, so these are free. The editing apps like Caption AI or so on, they have different plans. There's some free versions. Some of them have a free account with limited possibilities. Like, for example, the video should be 1 minute. So if it's longer, you should pay. Then there are some plans like 9 euros per month, and you can edit 10 videos 1 hour longer. So it depends on the plans. For the translation of the subtitles for YouTube, that gives you the first transcription. That's free. Since if you publish a video, even a 20 minutes video, for example, the video of this webinar, if you upload it on YouTube, then YouTube is going to create the first captions with some errors, of course, but it's it's improving every day. So that's free. Then if we go there, we take the text and we translate it with other tools. So for example, ChatGPT, the free version, it's okay. So we can start with that, translate, and then check if the translation is correct. So if we start from English, we can translate in Italian, and then so it's quicker. And then we read it to understand if it's correct. So that's free as well. Depends on the tool you're using. If you want to actually translate longer the text, longer audios, you have a meeting or a podcast, just an audio track. You want to have it translated into text. There are some tools. For example, Transcriptor is one. We can add in chat the link as well. And this Transcriptor, I think it's free for 3 contents per month. Then you have to pay, but then you can ask not just to transcript the audio into text, but also to translate in many languages. And so actually the tools are cheaper and cheaper every day. They're not, as I said before, no excuses, since today it's very easy to find ways to do what in the past required days of work. Now you can do it in 10 minutes. So things are quite different and easier, but anyway, the planification is the planning. So we should start saying, okay, we want this content, we want to create a content, and then we want to use it on different channels. Now we're going to speak about that. And so we should start thinking how we can make it complete. So which tools should we use to make not just a video, but a video with a text, with captions, with a description, with an article and images for the social media.